Welcome back to the Goal Line Stuff, where we talk about anything and everything football related. I'm Alex Kyorkchiev.
And I'm Michael St. Antonio. And boy, do we have a show for you today. First, we will go through Thursday Night Football, the most anticipated game, you could argue, of the season, is about to be underway in about an hour. So we're going to talk about predictions, some, stats about each team going on so far. Then next, after that, we're going to go over some trade deadline stuff. More specifically, we're going to go over the Deshaun Watson situation and what we think is going to happen with that, and if we think he's going to get traded or not. And finally, our most important topic of this episode, we're going to be talking about if the Bengals are legit or not. We're going to go over the Bengals, do some analysis, talk about what we've seen from them through the first 7 weeks. And first, let's get into this Thursday Night Football game. We got two incredible teams. Packers currently sitting at 6-1. Cardinals sitting at 7-0, the only undefeated team in the league right now. Isn't that crazy, Alex?
It is pretty crazy because if you had asked me going into the season who the last undefeated team would be, there is no chance that I would have ever said the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals, they look like they've made the jump this year. Cliff Kingsbury looks like an actually good coach as opposed to what he's done in the past years. His offense looks like it's finally clicked with the additions of Rondale Moore and James Conner, which even though I feel James Conner is just another running back, he's nothing special. His downhill running has really opened up the offense that a player like Kenyon Drake couldn't do last year. Their air raid offense, which has always been in place, it's finally allowed to open up with the addition of Rondale Moore with it too. And the run game opening up the passing game, plus Kyler's development as a passer and a quarterback overall, has just really made their offense explode. But also they are helped by the defense. I will concede.
Yeah, and on the flip side, you got the Packers who, Rodgers coming off an MVP season. There was all that offseason, nonsense going around. Is he coming back? Does he even want to play for them anymore? Does the organization value him as one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history? There was all that controversy going on. Yet the Packers sit at 6-1 right now. Davante Adams is having an incredible season. He's unfortunately out tonight. But yeah, the Packers look great on offense, and their defense hasn't been great, but it hasn't been atrocious. So, they definitely still have a shot in this one. I'm going to go over quickly. There's been two huge Packers and Cardinals games within the last 10 years. The first one, 2009 wild card game. We got the Cards defeating the Packers in the wild card. Kurt Warner throwing for 4 touchdown passes, winning 51-45. One of the first games I've ever seen as a football fan. And then this one, a lot more people probably remember, the 2015 wild card. We got Rodgers playing without any of his weapons. Jeff Janis was the wide receiver 1 for the Packers that game. And if you remember what happens, Jeff Janis catches a Hail Mary to send the Packers into overtime. But it really doesn't matter because Carson Palmer finds Larry Fitzgerald and they set up the game-winning touchdown for the Cardinals. While I do not think that this Thursday Night Football game will live up to either of those two games, I think it'll be a pretty good one. One thing that bumps me out a lot is the inactives for this game. Let me just give a quick rundown and then we can both give our opinions on those. For the Packers out tonight, we got Davante Adams out, Allen Lazard out, Jair Alexander, David Bakhtiari, Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Josh Myers, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling all out tonight. And that's a huge blow for the Packers as a whole. That's defensive and offensive superstars and, role players all out. And then we have some pretty big news coming earlier today about the Cardinals. J.J. Watt out for the year. Huge blow on the defense. Apparently has a torn bicep, labrum, and rotator cuff. So he's going to have to undergo surgery. Alex, what do you think these injuries bring to the table when it comes to this game and both teams looking at the future of the season?
Well, one underrated injury news that you didn't mention for the Cardinals is that Chandler Jones is actually going to come back. And Chandler Jones is a huge piece of that defense. In week 1, he had 5 sacks against, I want to say it was the Bears.
Yep. I
And
think it was the Bears.
and having that edge rusher on their line, it was the Titans actually.
Yeah, Titans, Tennessee, week 1.
Having that edge rusher on their line is huge for that defense because especially now that the Packers don't have any receivers this week besides Randall Cobb, Aaron Rodgers' favorite target. That Packers passing game is not going to be able to take off the way it has in past weeks. So look for a huge Aaron Jones game, especially with the loss of JJ Watt.
I agree with that.
I'm saying at least 150 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
Not to
I agree
mention
with
his
that.
impact with the passing game. But that JJ Watt news, as you said, it's horrible. He's one of, if not the greatest player of this generation, and he genuinely could have been the best defender ever if it wasn't for all the injuries. He won 3 defensive players of the year and could have won so many more if he didn't keep getting injured year after year. Even when he leaves the Texans, maybe it was a curse there. Nope, he's still getting injured for the year with the Cardinals. It's just really unfortunate, and it's going to hurt the Cardinals' run defense majorly.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Alex, there. And I want to say his 2014 season, in my opinion, is one of the greatest defensive seasons of all time. I mean, like you said, he's won 3 defensive player of the years. He's been an all-pro 5 times in his career. And, it really stinks when you have such a generational player, generational talent getting hurt this often. I believe he's 32. He's 32. And I think that this is likely the end of him being a superstar in the league. He's on the Cardinals. So if he comes back healthy next year, they look like a great team and they look like they're going to be great for many years to come. But it's just sad to see, maybe the downfall of one of the greatest players on defense that we've seen in the last decade. And so, yeah, like you said, I think Aaron Jones, though, is going to have a great game on, Packers run game. They don't have that many weapons. Playing Robert Tonyan might get a touchdown. Who knows? But I think pretty comfortably, in my opinion, I got the Cardinals winning this one. And I think it's just going to come down to, more players being available. Jair Alexander's not there to guard D-Hop or Christian Kirk or Rondale Moore or AJ Green, whoever is going to be playing. One of those guys is bound to get open. I just think when it comes down to it, there's not going to be enough for Rodgers to win on his own. Like you said, Aaron Jones probably going to have a good game, but I got a 31 to maybe 23 win for the Cardinals. What are your predictions, Alex?
Before I get into the score, I'm going to be honest. You said that this is probably the end of JJ Watt being a superstar. I think JJ Watt hasn't been a superstar for the last couple of years. He's just too many injuries to consider him a superstar at this point. And with his age, it's just I don't consider him a superstar personally.
2018, he was incredible. So I do agree with what you're saying, but I think this year was the last year where, I think there was still a chance for him to potentially be a superstar if he could stay healthy this year. But now that he got injured again, such a bad injury, I just can't see it. That's pretty much what I'm alluding to.
And you mentioned the injury to Jair Alexander, which I agree is huge. And the Packers are going to get lit up in the passing game. But you also have to consider that Hopkins hasn't practiced all week. He has a hamstring injury. So he might just be out there as a decoy. I would look for a big Christian Kirk game too.
Yeah, definitely.
But all that being said, my score prediction, I'm going to go 34-27 Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of that lethal Packers run game, even missing some offensive line pieces. Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon are just so talented that they're going to be able to pound the rock and, score plenty of points against that JJ Wattless defensive line.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's a pretty good prediction, and we'll see if it comes true. Yeah. Next, I think let's just get straight into the Deshaun Watson stuff. Let's get into what we think is going to happen at the trade deadline. Specifically, yeah, like I said, Deshaun Watson. Some of the rumors that have been going around about him, specifically, have been just crazy rumors. We had for the first report was that the Dolphins and the Texans have mutually made an agreement on a trade, on a Deshaun Watson trade. And the issue with that, originally what was being reported was that the Dolphins met what the Texans were looking for in terms of a trade, but they were unsure about the trade just for the fact that Watson's legal situation hasn't been dealt with yet. And recently, those rumors have actually been debunked. Apparently, the Dolphins have not met what the Texans have been looking for, which was at least 3 first-round picks. And so, yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Alex?
I'm going to go out and make a bold statement, which I could end up looking really stupid for in a few days. But I think every single Deshaun Watson rumor that comes out from this point on is completely bogus. And that's come out before that. I just simply think there's no way any team, even as boneheaded as the Dolphins or the Panthers, could trade for a quarterback that might not play this year or next year.
Yeah.
As good as Watson is, you just don't trade significant assets for such an uncertainty. Unless Deshaun Watson settles in court, which by all indications he's not going to do. He doesn't want to do that. There's no way he plays again this year, and there's no way any team takes the risk to trade for him, that is. Plus the Dolphins just drafted Tua 5th overall a year ago, which we have seen the Cardinals prove that they don't believe in the sunken cost fallacy, and that even if you draft a quarterback high overall, don't let that stop you from getting your guy. But I think Tua and Josh Rosen are on completely different levels. I think Tua has shown so much more capability as an NFL quarterback than Josh Rosen ever did with the Cardinals, that there's just no way you can give up on him for someone like Deshaun Watson. Like, maybe if you were getting a Patrick Mahomes, then obviously you give up Tua, but you could be sinking so many assets into a quarterback that just won't play for you.
Yeah. I actually agree with you. I wasn't sure if we were going to agree on this, but yeah, I don't think Deshaun Watson's getting traded by the trade deadline, nor do I think any team's going to want him until maybe looking at like next year, maybe as the earliest, in my opinion. What you're saying is true. I mean, teams are not going to risk giving up that much capital, that much potential future talent for a guy who may not even be on the field at all. For a guy, we know he's a great quarterback. He's a phenomenal quarterback. In fact, I think he's undebatable top 5, top 6 if he's playing right now. But he's not playing, so we can't really talk about that. But still, yeah, I just don't think Deshaun Watson on his own is worth that much, at least for the Dolphins with his current situation. Tua is not a great quarterback, and that's something I was wrong about. I thought he was going to be great. I loved his tape in Alabama. I just liked him as a player. And right now it doesn't look like I was right about a lot of my takes on Tua, but I still don't think it's early enough to turn him away yet. You said they took him 5th overall. He has turned over the ball a lot more than he should. He's afraid to, take deep shots to stretch the ball down the field. But the Dolphins have way bigger issues than just figuring out quarterback right now. And I do not think that, the Dolphins or the Panthers or any other team is going to be willing to give up that capital right now at the trade deadline.
Yeah, the Panthers have way bigger issues than trading for Deshaun Watson. Sam Darnold looked like he was seeing ghosts again at the same stadium that he used to see ghosts at. That's the ironic part. Back at MetLife, he had a horrible game. And so right back then, the Panthers got propelled right back into the Deshaun Watson rumors. And reports came out today saying that Matt Rule doesn't want to coach the NFL anymore. He's looking back at falling back into the college coaching scene, which that is certainly not what you want to see after such a awful loss. And trade rumors of your supposed franchise quarterback that you just gave up decently significant draft capital for in the offseason. But, and not to mention our Eagles that are rumored to be interested in him. We sent a whole private investigator allegedly to figure out his legal stuff, but
of course we did.
But Deshaun Watson did not waive his no trade clause to come to the Philadelphia Eagles.
I
That's how
don't
big of a
blame him.
dumpster fire they are.
Yeah. I don't want him either. Just
I
to
don't
put
I
on
don't
the
want him
record.
either for the record, but
Yeah.
he would rather not play at all than play for the Eagles.
Yeah. And also just like I feel like another issue with trading for Deshaun Watson is all the controversy around it. I mean, even if you get him, even if some of this legal stuff clears up, which I don't think it will anytime soon,
People's
you're
opinions
trading
won't
for a
change.
guy, there's all these allegations against him. And that's a locker room issue. That's,
Even if he is cleared legally, which is a big if, mind you, people's opinions will not change. That would be a PR nightmare.
yeah, exactly. And, I personally don't want that kind of person on my football team. If I'm the coach, if I'm a player, I don't care how good he is. Most people will not get a second chance after doing something that horrible or being allegedly doing something that horrible. And, the only reason why he hasn't, in my opinion, been, he isn't completely out of the NFL and how it's still a possibility he'll come back is because he's that good and he plays arguably not arguably, the most important position in the NFL, quarterback. So I do think he'll actually come back to the NFL at some point. I don't think it'll be this year. Next year, it might be a stretch. It may be 2 years from now. And I don't think he'll be as good. I mean, not playing for 2 years will do that to you.
You know what? I think he's going to be the 2022 Philadelphia Eagles starting quarterback, as much as it hurts to say.
Please let's not. Please do not.
Hurts, Jalen Hurts, pun.
No, Jalen Hurts is awful.
I think Deshaun Watson ends up a Philadelphia Eagle. I think he'll be
desperate
to get out.
I hope
think
not.
he'll be that desperate to get out of Houston that he ends up waiving his no trade clause, and I think he ends up playing Week 1 of the 2022 season in Midnight Green. As much as I don't like to say it, I believe that that's what's going to happen.
I mean, as a player, that's a big upgrade from Jalen Hurts, but I really do not want to see that. I really do not want to see that happen, and I really hope you're wrong. I mean, we'll have to see how that plays out. Yeah, but yeah, do you have? I mean, that's the biggest trade deadline news thus far, the Deshaun Watson situation. You have anything else you want to talk about with that?
There's not really much else going on with the trade deadline. There is some players that could be moved. Michael Gallup is a big one. Not a big one, but he's one of the bigger names that could be moved. They're not going to pay him over this offseason, so they might as well try and get something for him now. I think he could be a pretty big piece to a team that needs a receiver. He is shown to be very talented and has had some huge games over the years. And with the Cowboys drafting CeeDee Lamb, there's just no need for him on this offense anymore. Dak hardly ever throws to him since last season. And yeah, there's just no need to have him on your team. And they would be really wise to get some assets out of him. A team like maybe even the Falcons could get him to propel that offense, I think is a possible landing spot. The 49ers could definitely look to get Michael Gallup. Yeah. And I think he would be a huge get for a team and could propel a team to playoff contention for a low cost.
Another receiver who, this is just speculation. I don't think Gallup's going to get traded. And I also don't think this receiver will get traded, but Allen Robinson is having an awful season statistically, and it's not his fault. I mean, the Bears situation is atrocious. He has 250 yards and only 1 touchdown through 7 games. And those numbers are awful. That's down so much from last year. I don't even know the percentages, but I know he had over 1,200 yards and I believe 8-9 touchdowns last year, something like that. So yeah, Allen Robinson, I don't think is very happy with what's going on in Chicago. That's another name that's come up around some trade speculation. Marlon Mack has come up as a possible running back for teams to target. But yeah, like you said, there's not that much going on. I think the Watson news is definitely the biggest news and the item, I guess, of the last week, I would say. And, we've seen Gilmore get traded to the Panthers. We've seen Ertz get traded to the Cardinals. He had a nice touchdown last week, by the way. But yeah, there hasn't been that much. And I honestly don't think there will be much more in the future.
I want to piggyback off your statement about Allen Robinson. Not even prime Tom Brady could succeed in the Bears offense. Matt Nagy is just not a competent NFL offensive coach at this point, which is ironic because they hired him to be this offensive guru, and his offense has just been terrible. Besides David Montgomery, there is zero offensive bright spots on that team. And
Khalil Herbert right now.
I,
Khalil Herbert right now.
I said prime Tom Brady couldn't succeed. Then you put rookie Justin Fields there.
Oh,
It's just a disaster.
it's an awful situation for a really talented rookie quarterback, and I hope that
He's
this
talented,
one awful year
but
will not.
he's been so bad. He's
been
a
bad,
bottom two starter in the whole NFL.
yeah, but
If
the
not bottom one.
situation is so bad. Okay,
No, I'll give you that, but he also has just looked terrible.
but you could say the same about Allen Robinson right now. I mean, I don't think it's Allen Robinson's fault.
His quarterback can't get him the ball.
Allen Robinson also has the worst separation according to PFF this season out of any receiver in the league. So, I mean, yeah, I guess you could argue both ways. I think for both players. I'm defending Justin Fields though. We need to see another year. I mean, we've seen some really awful rookie seasons from quarterbacks over the years. And I just think it's Matt Nagy's fault. I really think Justin Fields will bloom eventually. We just have to wait.
It's unfortunate for Nagy too, because after he named Justin Fields the starter, even though Andy Dalton was healthy, you can't just bench Andy Dalton now or bench Justin Fields now and put in Dalton, even though Dalton would help you win games, because then you just kill Justin Fields' confidence. And there's just, I don't know that there would be coming back from getting benched your rookie year just for playing so bad. And that Justin Fields is obviously not going to help the Bears win any games and win playoff games and make the playoffs, which I think will be the demise of Matt Nagy as the Bears head coach.
I agree with you, honestly. And, it's pretty crazy in my opinion. Looking at it, the Bears were a team that I thought was going to have a bright future. Maybe not future. I thought they would have a good season. And on the flip side, getting into our next section, our biggest point of the whole show, I did not think the Cincinnati Bengals would be good this year. And I don't think many people did either. I mean, this is a team that I thought had a bad draft. They took Jamar Chase. I love Jamar Chase as a prospect, but there were some question marks there, in my opinion. At least the Bengals taking him. I personally did not believe in Joe Burrow after last season and the injury he had. I did not believe in that Bengals defense, in that Bengals young and inexperienced offensive line. I've always thought Joe Mixon was a little overrated. So all these things together, I thought they should have taken, a guard or a tackle, a really good offensive lineman. And they took Jamar Chase with that 5th overall pick. And so I was a little surprised on that. But I just want to say I was completely wrong about Burrow and Chase so far. Yeah, Jamar Chase has been incredible. You want to speak on that, Alex? I know you disagreed with my take this offseason about that.
I got to say, I was one of the ones pounding the table all offseason for the Bengals to take Jamar Chase, which hurt because the Bengals were picking 5th overall and the Eagles were 6th overall. So I thought we were guaranteed to get one of Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase until maybe a month before the draft, not even, maybe 2 weeks before the draft. Everyone kind of knew they were going to take Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
Which, again, it was obviously the right decision, seeing their offense now. And the way that Jamar Chase opens up that offense is huge. The Bengals before this year didn't have that deep threat receiver, that explosive receiver that could open up the whole offense. I'm saying it again, for Joe Mixon to run free. Joe Mixon is having a great start to the season.
His second best season so far, at least statistically. He's on pace for it.
Yeah, he's been running really well, and he's been involved in the receiving game a lot for about half the games, I'd say. And having these 3 distinct receivers on that Bengals offense, you have Tyler Boyd, who's your slot guy. He's going to make the possession catches. You have T. Higgins. He's your big X receiver. I'd say that Jamar Chase is your Y receiver.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Where he runs the deep routes, but T. Higgins is there to catch high point passes. He's your red zone guy, and he can just get a catch for you in the mid range, and then Jamar Chase will take a screen pass for 50 yards for a touchdown or run a deep post and score a 70-yard touchdown. And to have all these different options for Joe Burrow, it really showcases his talents where he can hit a bunch of different receivers. And he had the greatest college season of all time. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that he's succeeding like this in the NFL. Yet it's still a surprise to me because I was just put off by the fact that he only had one good season. So I didn't think that he would be this good, but he is proving everyone wrong. And the Bengals look like they are legit. To answer your question, they are legit. I wasn't sold until this week, but they came out with a huge statement victory over the Ravens. The Ravens they came off this great victory against the Chargers. They came off a statement victory of their own against the Chargers, and then the Bengals marched into their stadium and won by 24 points.
Yeah, crazy stuff. I just want to get into first Joe Burrow and then Jamar Chase, and then we could talk about other aspects of this Bengals team that have been really good so far. But first, like you said with Joe Burrow, I was a little skeptical going in. First overall picks get a lot of pressure, and looking at the Bengals team, I just thought they had one of the worst futures. Looking ahead for the next 5-10 years, I did not think this was a good situation for a guy like Joe Burrow, who was a very, very old prospect. I mean, he played all 4 years in college. So wasn't he 23 being drafted, 24?
He was on the older side. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you don't want that. You don't want your rookie quarterback to be on the older side. You don't want him going in a situation where awful line, awful everything besides, a couple good receivers, awful defense. So that's why I was skeptical. And on top of that, looking at his rookie season, he was very accurate. He played very well. But one thing that caught my eye was that he could not complete deep passes. He just didn't have it. His arm strength didn't look that great. He wasn't making the throws and stretching the ball downfield like he needed to. And, AJ Green is not the great receiver that he was in 2015, 2014. But, this year, he's clearly not washed. He's an all right receiver still. And him and Joe Burrow just weren't connecting. I'm pretty sure Joe Burrow only had one throw over 30, 35 yards last season that was completed. That was a big, big like red flag in my opinion. But with Jamar Chase this year, I'm pretty sure Joe Burrow already has 3 or 4 of those passes over 35 yards.
At least.
Maybe just to Jamar Chase.
Yeah, at least. Just to Jamar Chase.
And that's ridiculous. I mean, he's still lots of picks, lots of some bad decisions, but that's from Joe Burrow's side. But that's better than a quarterback who's afraid to push the ball downfield. He's also thrown 18 touchdowns. He's on pace to have a really good statistical passing season, and he's taken that jump that I didn't think he was going to take. Let me get into some Jamar Chase numbers. I did some research before talking about Chase just because he's been that good this year. I really wanted to zone in on the numbers that he's been doing. And so, yeah, like I said, Alex and I have been looking at Jamar Chase. As of right now, he is number 1 in the yards after catch above expected, meaning that every player is given the amount of yards that they're supposed to get on a play. He is the number 1 after the catch for getting yards, and basically like yards that he's not supposed to get, which shows you how explosive he is with the ball in his hand. He's number 3 in touchdowns currently, number 2 in yards. He has almost a 70% catch rate. And he also is on pace for 85 catches, 1,831 yards, and 15 touchdowns, which would be probably the greatest rookie season of all time, at least for a receiver. So yeah, that's pretty incredible.
This all I feel should not be a surprise. I mean, this guy made Justin Jefferson a number 2 receiver. Justin Jefferson, who just broke all those records you're talking about last year for a rookie receiver. This guy made Justin Jefferson a number 2 in the offense. I'm repeating because it's the statement speaks volumes.
Justin Jefferson is incredible. Yeah.
And to pair Jamar Chase with the quarterback that got him those stats in college, it was a perfect storm. It was a match made in heaven, him and the Bengals. Even though everybody said they should take Penei Sewell, they still ended up taking a lineman in the second. They got Jackson Carman out of Clemson, which I feel was wrong. I felt they should have gotten Tevin Jenkins. He was still available. But that's besides the point. The Bengals offense has been incredible, but I think the real story with the Bengals is their defense has been fantastic. The
It
Bengals
has.
defense historically, not historically, but the last few years has been horrendous. And I they haven't given up a lot of points to any one team this year. The most they've given up has been 20 25 points to the Packers, which the Packers are a high power offense. They're scoring in the 30s regularly. So for the Bengals to stop them to only 25 and only lose by a field goal in overtime is huge. The addition of Trey Hendrickson to that defense has been amazing. He's played really well so far. He has 6.5 sacks on the year already through 7 games, which he's keeping up his play from the Saints last year, which everyone didn't think he would because everyone viewed him as kind of the cleanup guy for Cam Jordan on that defensive line, and he would just get the sacks. But he's played fantastic this season and has been a huge part of why that Bengals defense has been able to hold their opponents to such low scoring totals. Baltimore's high powered offense only scored 17 points at home.
Yeah. Let me just say, quickly just pulled up. PFF has the Bengals defense currently ranked as the 5th best defense in the league in terms of how they've played this season, which is mind boggling considering how bad of a defensive team they've been over the last decade. They're currently ranked 9th in terms of the run defense and 7th in terms of pass defense. And I think that really, shows how much they've stepped up this season. If you look at their defensive starters right now, none of them are eye-popping names. Maybe Jesse Bates is. I mean, one of the best safeties in the league.
Absolutely is.
A lot of people don't know about him because the Bengals, until this year have been an awful team. But yeah, besides Jesse Bates, there's really not that many like superstars on this defense. But you got guys who are just doing their part. Sam Hubbard having a good year. Like you said, Trey Hendrickson, who had, I believe, 13 and a half sacks or 13 sacks.
It was 13 and a half.
13 and a half. I was right. So yeah, 13 and a half last season on the Saints. Bengals end up with him, and he's continuing dominance on the Bengals. Even Eli Apple, who stinks. He's an awful corner, or at least he has been in the past. He's having a decent year, at least in terms of what he's done so far with the Bengals. And, with Jamar Chase and, Joe Burrow and the line playing so well. I know you said you don't think Carmen was the right pick in the second round for the Bengals. I actually agree with you there. But, Deontay Smith, one of the Bengals starting offensive linemen, went on IR, and it forced Carmen and Trey Hill to, rotate in for some starts. And Jackson Carmen actually made some big plays last week. Samaje Perine had the 46-yard touchdown, which kind of solidified the win against the Ravens. And Jackson Carmen had the lead block on that play. And so, when you just look at things like this, everyone's doing their role. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Bengals are legit. I think they're making the playoffs easy with the way they're playing right now. And I think the future is bright. I do. I think the future is bright with, all these young studs on the team.
You mentioned the defensive backs. They lost one of the, I would say, premier corners in the NFL last year. They lost William Jackson to Washington. And misfits, I would call them. Guys like Mike Hilton used to play for the Vikings. Eli Apple has been on a couple teams, the Giants, the Saints. Cheeto Awuzie is not on the Cowboys anymore. He's playing well for the Bengals. Von Bell from the Saints. They've built this whole new secondary, and they've been playing really well so far, which is a surprise considering the names they are. But it's a really cohesive unit that can play great football together, along with their defensive line that is actually very, very good. With DJ Reader, Larry Ogunjobi are amazing run stoppers. Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson, as I mentioned on the pass rush, they've been able to stifle run games. And because of that, they've been able to get the offense more playing time and more time to gel, which obviously the offense has taken great advantage of so far. And they're seeing that success reflect on their record.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible in my opinion. As someone who I think, I don't want to sound cocky here, but I feel like many of my takes in terms of teams, many of them are correct. And this one, I was pretty clear cut. I said the Bengals were going to probably go 4-13 this year. I said that at the beginning of the season, and I'm eating my words right now. I mean, I was completely wrong. Yeah, another star on the offensive line we didn't talk about, Jonah Williams, left tackle. He's been playing great this year. Not a lot of news about him because, it's the Bengals. Like I said, they don't get as much media attention as other teams. But he's had a great second year. He had a kind of a quiet first year, but he took his game up a step this year as the starting left tackle for the Bengals. I just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, I think we both agree the Bengals are a legit team. Do you think they're going to win their division, Alex?
Win their division? No, no.
No.
I'm gonna no. I don't think they will. I think Baltimore ultimately will, with one of the other two teams making a wild card spot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Bengals are going to be probably the second wild card spot, I would say.
I agree with you there, honestly. I still have the Ravens winning the division, but like I said, I think the Bengals are making the playoffs, in my opinion. I think it's solidified after what I saw last week.
Oh, absolutely. The Bengals are definitely going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Okay. Next segment, we're just going to talk about some of the upcoming games going into next week. The Bengals play one of them against the Jets. I think we all know who's going to win that one.
Yeah, that's not
yeah,
much of a secret. Mike
not
White.
much of a secret. Let's talk about some other ones. You want to go first with a pick that you have for next week?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pick the Colts over the Titans at home.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Explain this one.
The Titans offense is a complete buzzsaw right now with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's having his best season so far, which is crazy because he's had so many crazy years, especially last year. But he genuinely could win MVP this year. I think he's an actual MVP candidate, even though it's usually a reserve award reserved for quarterbacks. I think Derrick Henry is having such a crazy season right now that he could win MVP, and I don't think there's a definitive MVP leader at quarterback right now. So Derrick Henry is in that conversation to me. But the Colts defense is really good and has been playing out of their minds. And Carson Wentz is hitting his groove. He's hitting his stride. As much as I don't like him, I think he's getting in his rhythm, and he's gonna propel this Colts team to a win against their division rival Titans. The last game, it was kind of close. The final score was 25-16, but most of those Titans points were scored in the fourth quarter, which does not bode well for the Colts and their late game talent. But I think the Colts are going to take this one. I think their offense is also clicking with Jonathan Taylor. Has had a great stretch of games these last couple weeks, and the Titans defense is not good, to say the least. Even though they made the Chiefs look stupid and the Chiefs offense was terrible, I think that was more of a reflection on the Chiefs offense than the Titans defense. So I think Jonathan Taylor is going to run all over them, and I think Carson Wentz is going to have a great day passing, which is going to lead them to a win over the Titans.
That's a valid take. I disagree. I think the Titans will win this one, but I do think many of your points could hold true. I think it'll be a close one. Just wanted to touch on that Derrick Henry comment you made. This has been his best season so far, which is insane. In the past, I have been on the record with you and other people saying Derrick Henry's not the best running back in the league. I didn't even think he was a top 2 running back in the league, honestly. And yeah, now it's to the point where, yeah, he is the best running back in the league, and I can't argue it. I like him as a player, but before I was like skeptical. He's just putting up historical numbers, and yeah, he's the best running back in the league. Maybe he'll make an argument being one of the best running backs of all time after this season or after in a couple of years. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. I think the Titans will win that one, but we'll see. Carson Wentz going to put up a fight. The game I'm going to talk about is Patriots versus Chargers. Just very quickly, Mac Jones has been the best rookie quarterback this year. Justin Herbert had that insane game. He's had a couple insane games this year. He beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And he's just looked really good. And so I think what it comes down to is which quarterback plays better, which coach gets out coached here. I think it'll be a pretty close game, honestly. But I'm going with the Chargers on this one. The Patriots have looked great against awful teams. They've been able to exploit awful teams. But when it comes down to it, I think the Chargers just have more talent. Mike Williams will probably have a big game. Austin Eckler will probably have a big game. I don't think Mac Jones and that, Bill Belichick run offense is enough to put up a lot of points against, Chargers defense, who still has some superstars on it. Not the best defense, but still has some superstars on it. I think Chargers take this one by a score or two.
Um, I agree with you on the take that the Chargers are going to win and that the Patriots can easily exploit the Chargers' worst ranked run defense in the NFL with their run oriented offense. They had a huge game against the Jets last week running the ball. Three guys had amazing games: Damian Harris, JJ Taylor, and Brandon Bolden.
The Jets, though, come on.
But
Come on.
I'm calling blowout of it, to be honest. I think the Chargers are going to demolish the Patriots, which again, I could end up looking stupid next week after the game is over, but I'm pretty confident in this one. I think that the Patriots traveling to the West Coast and playing such a high-powered offense like the Chargers, I just don't think there's any way the Patriots can keep up. The Patriots are a field goal team and the Chargers are a touchdown team. And I don't think there's as huge of a discrepancy as in the coaching staffs as there was last year, where the Chargers got shut out. And Brandon Staley is a huge upgrade over Anthony Lynn. So I think he's going to be able to propel the Chargers to just destroy the Patriots. I'm saying by 3 scores minimum.
Fair enough. We'll see if these predictions hold true. We're just going to quickly, before the episode is over, we have 2 other teams that we want to talk about a tiny bit with some interesting situations. You want to go first, Alex?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the Saints. I know that they played the Seahawks, the Seahawks who are neutered with Geno Smith, but nobody can run on the Saints. The Saints have a top defense in the NFL, and it's on par with last year's Buccaneers defense. With the run defense, you won't run on them. Simple as that.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
They've looked good. Michael Thomas coming back potentially in a couple weeks. Kamara still having a pretty good year. Offense obviously not as prolific as it was in the past, but yeah, the Saints are an interesting team so far this year.
And they can win these games where they can score a lot of points with, anything's possible with Jameis Winston as your quarterback. So they are perfectly capable of having these high scoring games, especially with Alvin Kamara, but they can also win these grind fests where they score 13, 17 points because of how great their defense is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Saints are an interesting team. I'm going to go to an Eagles-Saints game in a couple weeks, so we'll see how that turns out. I think we'll lose.
Bold prediction.
Yeah. I'm going to quickly go over my team. I want to talk about the 49ers a little bit. More specifically, I want to talk about George Kittle, tight end, who a lot of people are still saying, a lot of NFL fans say is the best tight end in the league. And while he's on the field, yeah, I mean, I don't think it is debatable, actually. I'm not going to say it's not debatable. But in my opinion, I think George Kittle as a blocker and as a receiving threat is the best tight end in the league. But I mean, since 2019, he just keeps getting injured. I mean, 2019, he was injured 4 or 5 games. 2020 last year, he played 4 or 5 games only. Then he got injured for the rest of the year. And then he came back, I think, for like 1 or 2 games, but still. And then this season, he already landed on IR. I believe it was after week 4, week 5. I don't know, but it just has me a little worried. I think his career really may be in jeopardy, and it stinks to see such a talented player could arguably be one of the greats if he could just stay healthy. It sucks seeing him be hurt. And it also really stinks for the 49ers. You have a lot of young players. Deebo Samuel having an incredible year. But other than Deebo Samuel, you need some more guys to step up on that offense. And not having Kittle, in my opinion, has really hindered them as an offense as a whole. They don't have a good starting running back either. Yeah. You agree, Alex?
I do agree. You see how poor the 49ers offense is when teams hone in on the run and are also able to stop Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel had a great game against the Colts, but he still didn't dominate, and the Niners offense just got shut down in the second half. So George Kittle I feel like if they had George Kittle, they would have beat the Colts there.
Yeah, I honestly agree with that.
He's that big for their offense.
It just stinks. I mean, this is a guy who I think could be putting up 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns a year if he stays healthy and if he's utilized properly. And also an elite blocker. So it's just, I really hope the injuries stop. I really hope, the Niners, Kyle Shanahan keeps drafting guys he's not using. Brandon Ayuk, Trey Sermon. He drafted, Dante Pettis. It's just so many guys. Just an interesting team. We'll see how that division plays out. Right now, they're in third place, maybe third or tied for fourth with the Seahawks. I'm not positive,
I want to say
but
they're a game up on the Seahawks.
game up, that makes sense. No Russell Wilson. What can you expect out of him? But yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna make the playoffs with just everything going on, and we'll have to see how that plays out. You got anything else, Alex?
I do not have anything else to add, Michael.
Amazing. This has been a very good episode. We'll make sure to see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.